Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Frank Valerio getting ready to do a video demonstration that was requested by the Warner Robins Club. I did a little demo on the 24th on Monday at the Warner Robins Club on how to do batch processing in Lightroom, and one of the members there had requested if I could create a video of the demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to do that in this video. So what we're going to do is launch Lightroom, and I will show you the demonstration I did during that meeting. So we're going to go ahead and launch Lightroom. This is Lightroom 2019 CC, and I've already imported some photos I took yesterday at a meetup we had down in Coleman Hill in Macon. As you can see, I took these pictures intentionally underexposed, just to show the latitude that raw files have, and the ability for you to lighten them up without losing image quality. So first step here is so the reason you would use batch processing, for instance, if you let's say you shot a wedding or whatever event, a party, and you took, let's say, 200 photos. You don't want to come into Lightroom or Photoshop and edit each one individually. So what batch processing allows you to do is you edit one photo, take your time editing that one photo, and then when you're done, you can apply all those settings to the rest of the photos in your series or catalog. So in this sample, I just took 6 photos just to make it short. But the way you import these photos is you click on File here, and then you go to Import Photos and Video. In this case, it's photos. You're gonna import photos, and I'm just gonna show you how I imported those. I went to the folder that I have those photos in, and they were in here. So the ones that are imported are down here, but they're already imported, so I'm not going to import them again. But it's these 6 that are here at the bottom. Cancel. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight the first photo that I'm going to edit, and then what I'm gonna do is click on Develop, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's about 2 stops underexposed. Like I said, I took it that way on purpose. Basically, what I did was I turned off my my flash trigger and took the photos without the flash. Excuse me. So now what we're gonna do is edit the photo. As you can see, the histogram shows that it's heavily curved to the left, so that tells me that the photo is underexposed. The way this histogram works is if the graph was more at a more leaning to the right, then it would be telling me that the picture is overexposed. But in this case, it's under. And what I'm going to do is Lightroom. The workflow that I use in Lightroom is pretty much the same workflow that's laid out in these panels right here. I just work from top to bottom, so it makes it pretty easy. And so what I do is going down the line here is I'll set the exposure, so I'll increase that to about there. Contrast, I'll leave that alone for now. highlights I'm going to bring down a little bit to get the skies and the buildings in the back end a little bit better. So as you can see, that's coming in a little bit better than what it was. This is what it looked like, and this is what I'm changing it to. And then the shadows I'm gonna increase just to get him lit up a little bit, to get the subject lit. So right around there. Like I said, there was no flash used in this photo, otherwise it would look a lot better if I would have used flash. But just for this example, I'm going to increase the shadow just to illuminate him a little bit better. And then the next thing I do is, as you can see, the whites has a slider, but one thing that can help you decide where to put it is if you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard and you move it till you start seeing a little bit of white coming in. So I'm moving it to the right. As you can see, that little spot right there, it was right around 40. I'm gonna back it up to like 36. That's probably where it started. That's where you start beginning to see white. And then you do the same thing with the blacks. You hold down the Alt key and you move to the left till you start seeing some black, and like right around there you start seeing some black there come in. So then that's around, I would say around 38, 36, 38. You let it go, and so we've got our whites and our blacks set correctly. Clarity, I usually bump that up just a little bit just to get some little bit of sharpness in there. So about, not too much, about between 5 and 7. Dehaze is a pretty cool tool, but I don't think this photo requires it. But just to show you, that's around 7 right there. Vibrance and saturation I'm gonna leave alone on this picture because it doesn't need it. Going down the line, tones and curves I don't really mess with. HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. You can play around with this. Saturation is usually what if I use it, it's normally in saturation. But here you can remove and add colors. Let's say you got too much green, for instance. You can go ahead and move the green slider back, and as you can see, it's removed all the green, pretty much all the green in the photo. Bringing the green back to the center. Same thing with the blues. I'll remove all the blues there, and then bringing the blues back, and then the yellows. So I'm not gonna mess with this. I'm leaving everything in the middle. If you have something like this over to the side and you double click it, it will bring it to the middle. So that's a good way to bring it back to 0. Just double clicking the little slider, so everything is back to 0 again. Going down the line, split toning I don't mess with. Details, I do a little bit of sharpening. So the way I do it is this piece right here, you can move it around if you like to as well. But as you can see, this is part of his shirt, and let's take a look at that lock that's on his chain. What we do is I'll start sharpening it a little bit, and I usually go about probably between 80 and 90, so about 85, and then I just jump down to the masking. And what the masking does is it controls the amount of sharpening that is applied to the picture. And so what you do is, the way you can see that is holding down the Alt key again, and then you move the slider. So if it's all the way to the far left, that means the whole entire picture is being sharpened, and you don't really want that. You just want to sharpen certain edges of the picture. So as you start sliding to the right, you notice that it starts turning black. Areas are turning black, And what that means is the areas that are black are not being sharpened, and the areas that are white are being sharpened. So usually somewhere around between 80 and 90 is where I usually stick around there. So this one's going to be around 86, then let it go, because you don't want to basically you don't want to sharpen the background that you blurred out by using the low f-stop. So you don't want to sharpen that. So that's the reason why you want to control the sharpening. And as you can see, the lock is looking a lot better now too. It's not as grainy. And then we go down to the next section, which is noise reduction. Usually noise reduction, I normally apply this according to the ISO that I'm shooting at. So this picture was shot, as you can see, ISO 200, which is pretty low. There's very little noise in this picture. But let's say I've shot this at 6400 or 12800 and above, then I would slide this to the right a little bit and remove some of the noise. One thing you got to remember though is you slide it too much, you're going to be removing detail. So you want to kind of balance this out a little bit. Like I said, I shot this at ISO 200, so I'm just going to leave it at 0. Next area is going to be the lens correction area. So under profile here, I check these two boxes where it says remove chromatic aberration and enable profile correction. I check those two boxes, and you'll notice that it applied a correction to the photo. And I was using the Tamron 28-75 in this photo, f2.8 lens, and Lightroom has this lens in its database. It keeps it up to date. Like every time new lenses come out, when you get a Lightroom update, it'll add this lens to the database, and the profile correction is added to that database so that you can use it. So the next step here is to also, you can go to manual here, and you can select the amount of, let's say, aberration. Sometimes you'll get some purple fringing. There's not any fringing in this lens here, but I usually put it around 2. So back to the profile, so you can see, just so you can see what the profile is doing, I'm going to uncheck the profile correction. Notice how the picture changes just a little bit. And the other important thing too is that it fixes if the lens has any vignetting, it'll compensate for that as well. As you can, if you pay attention to this corner here, when I apply the profile, it'll lighten up that corner. I'll do that again so you can see it. There is profile is enabled, profile is disabled, enabled. Alright, so then once that's done, don't do anything down here. So basically I'm pretty much done with the sliders. I go back to the top now, and then I check to see if my white balance is good, if that looks good to you. If it's too yellow, you can move it to the left here, and as you can see, it's turning it blue. If it's too blue, you can move it to the right, and I think right around there is looking good. This monitor has been calibrated using the X-Rite Color Monkey is what I use. So it's the colors are pretty much spot on. So I'm gonna leave it right at, looks like around 5800. Between, actually you can type it in too as well, 5800. I'm gonna back down the exposure just a little bit right there. Yeah, that looks good there. Alright, so I'm happy with the way it looks right here. Actually, I would be more happier if I had flash on it, but like I said, this is just for this example. This is as good as it's going to get here. So we're going to go ahead and go back to library because we're done with this photo. I'm going to go back to library, and as you can see, this is the picture that I edited, and then these are the other ones that are not edited yet. What I'm going to do is apply those settings that I just applied to this one. We're going to apply it to the rest of the photos automatically. So what we do here is select this first photo, and then what you want to do is hold down Control Shift on your keyboard and select the last photo that you want to include in that syncing. So that selects them all. You drop down to where it says sync settings down here, click on it, and then here what you want to do is you want to make sure that there's settings that are specific to photos, like spot removal and crop, are unchecked, because then it'll apply those settings to all the other pictures, and you pretty much, these settings are more specific to a certain photo, so you want to uncheck those. But everything else, and if there's something that you don't want to get synced, all you got to do is uncheck it here. Alright, so then we pretty much get all of our settings that we want to sync checked, and then we hit synchronize, and then you get it's already done, but there was a progress bar up here, and it applied as you can see, it applied these settings to the rest of the photos in here. So all of these have been adjusted. At this point now, what we want to do is export these photos as JPEGs to our hard drive. So the way we do that is we have them all highlighted, which they are right now. But if they were not highlighted, what you could do is same thing, hit Control Shift and select the last one. The other thing you can do is Control A, does the same thing, selects them all. Alright, so now we have them all highlighted. We're going to go up to File, and then we want to click on Export. And here we're going to select where the pictures are going to, where the photos are going to get exported to. In this sample, I'm going to export them to the same folder as where the originals are located. And then I'm going to create a subfolder inside that folder called JPEG. So JPG, it's already set there. And then what we want to do next, if you wanted to change the name of the files, you can do that here, but I'm going to keep them the same. I'm going to drop down to File Settings. So my purpose of exporting these photos is going to be for Facebook. So I don't want a real high resolution or high quality photo for Facebook, because Facebook can only handle so much resolution. So what I do here is I go to JPEG out of the choices, and then quality I'll stick to around 80. Color space is going to be sRGB, because that's what the internet uses, sRGB. Anything that goes onto the internet or the web is going to be sRGB color space. And then what you want to do next is you want to select the resize the photo on the long edge. So the choices are width, height, dimension. You want to select long edge, and then when you select long edge, you want to select the number of pixels here. You want to select 2048. Facebook can only handle the longest edge on Facebook can be 2048 pixels. Anything higher than that, it's gonna pretty much destroy the quality of the picture, because it's gonna put its own compression on there. So 2048 and below, you can go 1800, 2000, but just make sure you're below that number. And then for resolution, I stick with 96 for the internet. Facebook, stick to 96. Now if you were gonna provide this to a customer, you would just leave the size alone and leave the resolution at 300, because more than likely you know the customer is going to want to print that photo, so you would leave it at 300. But in this case, we're exporting for the internet, so we're going to leave it at 96. Next section is output sharpening. We're going to select sharpen for screen, and then amount is just going to be standard. And then the next area is the copyright. You can remove your personal information off the photo. You can include that in there. These are the different choices. So, and then watermark, we can select, you can do edit watermark, and what that does is going to show you, this is my watermark here. I can move that watermark around by anchoring it, so I can go say down to the bottom. And then the other thing you can do is move that around, so you can move it to the edge here or move it to the other side. So we're going to bring it down to right there, and probably going to make it proportional to the photo and make it a little smaller, like right there. So as you can see, the watermark is like right here. Let's see, we might want to move it to the other side. So let's move it to that side, and then move this right there, and then this to the far right. Okay, so that's good right there. It's going to be in the bottom right corner. Alright, when you're happy with where it's at, you hit save, and you're going to say Valerio, I'll say right corner. So it just saves that setting. Alright, so I think we're ready to export at this point. You can go back and review everything, just make sure everything looks good. But I'm pretty sure everything's good. 2048. So we're going to go ahead and hit export. And since I exported this earlier, it says the files already exist. I'm going to go ahead and just overwrite again. And then up here, as you can see, is the progress bar. It says export 6 files. There's a little progress bar here, and then when it's done, the computer will make a little ding, and it's completed. So we can check those files by going to the folder where we exported them to. So I can show you that here. If we go to the folder and 922 JPEG folder, here's the photos that we just exported. And just to show you, there's one of the photos. Here's the logo on the far right, and that's pretty much it. Look at the next photo, but they all should pretty much look the same since we applied that setting. So I'll go ahead and close this, and then close this. That's pretty much it, guys. If you have any questions, just I guess post them down below in the comments area, and we'll talk to you guys later. All right, take care. Bye.